America, this is your heritage.
The Klan terrorized black Americans through murders and public floggings. Relief was granted only if they promised not to vote for Republican tickets, and violation of this oath was punishable by death. And since the Klan was targeted against Republicans in general, it did not limit its violence simply to black Republicans. In this old illustration, the Klan in North Carolina is about to hang a white Republican. And in 1871, a black U.S. congressman from South Carolina, Joseph Hayne Rainey, reported an incident concerning an elderly man named Dr. John Winsmith, a white Republican state senator.
The doctor, a man nearly 70 years of age, had been to town. Returning home late, he soon afterward retired. A little after midnight, he was aroused by someone knocking violently at his front door.
Get out of here!
Not good!
The Klan shot down this state senator, a white state senator, because he was Republican and was fighting for the rights of blacks in his state. In that hail of bullets, Dr. Winsmith was hit 7 times. However, he survived the shooting and lived to testify before Congress about the attack made on him by the Klan. This is a Klan pushcard from 1868, about the size of a baseball card. It is entitled, Radical Members of the South Carolina Legislature. It shows 63 radicals. They were all Republicans. The Democrats called Republicans radicals because the Republican Party was biracial and allowed blacks to vote and participate in the political process, thus making them radical in the Democrats' eyes. Of the 63 radicals, or Republicans, in the South Carolina legislature, 50 were black and 13 were white. On the back of this card, all the names of the radical Republicans were listed. Evidently, if the Klan wanted to pay a night visit, as they had to Senator Winsmith, with the help of this card, they would know exactly who they were looking for.
We know the Klan is often associated with lynchings, and these are some of the most abominable pictures in history, but these are pictures of actual lynchings. 4,800 Americans were lynched. Now, out of the 4,800 that were lynched, 1,300 were white, 3,500 were black.
We have never heard that before.
We've never heard 1,300 white lynched. I thought it was just lynching blacks. No, they were lynching Republicans. But again, back at that point in American history, if you were black, you were a Republican. You couldn't lynch every white you saw. Some of them might be Democrats. So you have to find out who they are. And that's why you have these little cards to identify the whites and the blacks that are Republicans, so you know who you're going after. People say the Klan wasn't partisan. Really? That's kind of interesting that as you get into the 1920s and 30s and 40s, the Klan was actually a wing of the Democrat Party. Matter of fact, George Wallace, who ran for governor in the South, a very famous name in the South, he lost his first election because he refused to accept the Klan endorsement in the Democrat primary. So the second time he ran for office, he accepted the Klan endorsement and won the primary. You go into Texas, Ma Ferguson, she had trouble. She wouldn't accept the Klan primary, and it kept her from having a cohesive win as Texas governor. And she eventually became Texas governor. But this was a significant part of the Democrat Party. It was an entire wing in the Democrat Party. And as you look, here's a picture of a Klan parade. You actually in Washington, D.C. had 40,000 members marching the Klan parade at the turn of the century. They included U.S. senators, U.S. reps, Supreme Court justices, members of the Democrat Party.
When would that picture?
This picture is going to be taken in about 1910. One of the great Klan recruiting films of all time is called Birth of a Nation. Birth of a Nation is really one of the first films that was ever done, a motion picture, and it shows the Klan as heroes saving the South from all the blacks. And by the way, guess where that film was shown? It was shown in the White House. It was the first film ever shown in the White House. It was shown by Democrat President Woodrow Wilson. When he became president, a number of blacks already held federal office. He got rid of them, got them out of office. Teddy Roosevelt got all sorts of ire when he invited Booker T. Washington to come to the White House. The first African American to come to the White House, Booker T. Washington, invited by Republican President Teddy Roosevelt, who used him as an advisor. Well, we move on from Roosevelt. We move now, and Roosevelt's appointed a number of blacks in his administration. You move on into Woodrow Wilson, he gets all blacks gone, and he shows a Klan recruiting film at the White House. See, the Klan was an active part of American politics for way too long.
By 1875, only a decade after the Civil War, Republicans had successfully passed almost 24 civil rights laws, and black American legislators often played significant roles in the debates surrounding the passage of such laws. One example involved a civil rights bill in 1871, a bill allowing the federal government to punish Klan violence. During the debates on that bill, Representative Joseph Hayne Rainey from South Carolina delivered a powerful speech during the debates on that bill, explaining why blacks were most often the targets of Klan violence.
When we call to mind the fact that this Klan persecution is waged against men for the simple reason that they dare vote with the Republican Party, the question is sometimes asked, why do not the courts of law afford redress? We answer, because the courts are in many instances under the control of Democrats who are wholly opposed to the impartial administration of law and equity. What benefit would result from appeal to courts whose officers are secretly in sympathy with the very evil against which we are striving? If the Negroes, numbering 1/8 of the population of these United States, would only cast their votes in the interest of the Democrats, all open measures of violence against them would immediately be suspended and their rights as American citizens recognized. But I can only say that we love freedom more, vastly more than slavery. Consequently, we hope to keep clear of the Democrats. I will also say that in the state of South Carolina, which I represent, there's no disturbance of an alarming character in any one of the counties in which the Republicans have a majority. The troubles are usually in those sections in which the Democrats have control. I say to the entire membership of the Democratic Party that upon your hands rests the blood of the loyal men of the South. Disclaim it as you will, but the stain is there to prove your criminality before man and God in the world in the day of retribution, which will surely come. I pity the man or party of men who would seek to ride into power over the dead body of a legitimate opponent. I can say for my people that we are fully determined to stand by the Republican Party and the government. We have resolved to be loyal and firm, and as Queen Esther said long ago, if we perish, we perish. I earnestly hope that this bill will pass.
Look, dealing with PoliTricks, politicians, wing, right wing, no matter how you slice it up, how you look at it, it's still two wings on the same damn bird of prey. We pray, P-R-A-Y, while they pray, P-R-E-Y. We're ignorant to the facts, to so many facts that we should. That's why we're prey, because of our ignorance. Ignorance to what's going on behind closed doors and what's blatantly in our face. We are ignorant to so many things. Politics, PoliTricks, how it affects our lives. Did you know that I heard the mayor here, who's a black man, he's a Democrat, said that 95% of African Americans are Democrat. Now I happen to know this because, hey, what color am I? If you are going off of my skin tone, then I'll be labeled as a black man, even though I'm brown and copper tone, but I'll be a black man. Now, did you know that, all right, let me ask you this. Do you like abolitionists? If you're black, do you like abolitionists? Do you know what an abolitionist is? An abolitionist is a person who fights or who fought against slavery. It was abolitionists who helped with the Underground Railroad. It was abolitionists who fought for civil rights, and so, as the story goes. That's what an abolitionist is. So as a black person, do you like abolitionists? Now, as a black person, do you like racist people? Stupid questions, right? Of course you like an abolitionist if they fight against slavery, and of course you don't like people who are for slavery or who are racist. But here's where it gets twisted. Did you know traditionally, Republicans were the abolitionists, and traditionally, Democrats were the racist slavers? Did you know that? Republicans fought against slavery. Democrats fought to keep it alive and a thriving business. The KKK was the military arm of the Democratic Party. For lack of a better way to describe it as a military arm, it was the persuasive element of the Democrats to go out and persuade people to keep their asses home, to go out there and scare those black folk. You better stay in your place. You better not even think about voting against us, or else. That was the KKK's role with the Democrats. As a matter of fact, it's on record that some of the founders were Klansmen, and that the Klan said in one of their magazines, the Klan had a magazine, and it said in their publication that they would never, ever, ever vote for anyone other than a Democrat. Now, can you believe that during the Civil War, some black people fought against the Union? They fought for the slavers. Why? Oh, well, Master was good to us. He wasn't like all those other masters. Master was going to give us land and give us this. Give is the word here. Give, give, give. Today's black people are fighting for the Democrats. Democrats are the slavers, and the Democrats are the ones that's always wanting to give, give, give. Bankrupting, and see, that's another subject. Both parties, all parties, always talking about bankrupting the country. The country's already bankrupt. A lie coming from both sides of the bird. Right wing, left wing, whole different subject. Getting back to the Democrats and the Republicans. The Democrats were the slavers of the Civil War era, and the Democrats are the slavers of today, except today they've convinced us, just like back then they convinced us through fear and violence. Today they convinced us, not through fear and violence, but that we're in control. They convinced us to fight on their side. What's the #1 killer of black people? Just in case you were curious. Is it high blood pressure, hypertension? Is it cancer? Dementia? Are people crippling over and dying from arthritic conditions? Liver disease? Cholesterol problems? Are people dying from black on black crime? Are those, which ones is the leader? Which is the highest killer of black people? None of the above. It's abortion. Abortion. And everything I'm telling you is on record. Abortion is the #1 killer of so-called African American people in the United States, which is promoted by the Democratic Party. And see, you start touching emotions. I mean, it's a blurred line between a woman's right to choose and murder. It's a blurred line. The Democrats studied racism and to a science on how to use this. Just in case you never heard of the Willie Lynch letter. Some people say that this letter never existed. You know, again, another subject for another time. This Willie Lynch letter, basically it was Willie Lynch addressing all the slavers back in the 1500s, how to break a Negro, and make him hate himself. You can make this Negro, you know, they were having problems with black people running away from the plantations or revolting and things like that. So Willie Lynch came up with a way to show the slavers how to never have to deal with that issue again. Make the slave love his condition. Make the slave love his master and love everything about being a slave. Give him control. The Democrats have you control. At least that's what you think. While they killing your babies. How many people would love to adopt the baby that you're killing? Now, I'm not getting into incest, a father raping a daughter, or you know, something crazy like that, and somebody getting pregnant. I'm not getting into that. Those are the little emotional points that people try to push to try to justify killing babies. Now, when we talk about abortion, why is it that out of abortion, the African American, it's the highest form of murder in that particular ethnic group? What African Americans, so-called African Americans, because African Americans, you know, the whole identity thing is a whole nother bunch of bullshit that we can get into a whole nother time. But they're not the only ones that's affected with this. Margaret Sanger, going back to the Democrats and the Klan, Margaret Sanger was one of the founders of Planned Parenthood. She was a top-of-the-line eugenicist. Hitler praised Margaret Sanger, loved her program so much that he devised his own program based off of her way of population control over here in the United States. She is on record. She is documented. You have pictures of her giving Klan rally lectures and meetings to all these racist white women and white men who just wanted to see a nigger hang. And now you have Planned Parenthood in every neighborhood. I went to Planned Parenthood just the other day just to go stand in front of the building and look at it with awe and say, damn, it's still here. Right in plain open sight. And when you go in there, who do you see working? Black people, for the majority. Margaret Sanger's plan was to get the preacher to help shuttle the flock into Planned Parenthood. Hey, I'm not making this up. Margaret Sanger wanted to use the preachers because she knew that they could only reach so far. So they had to get the so-called African Americans' own people to promote her ideology. So she got the preachers. Where, you know, black people are very religious and spend a lot of time in church. So, you know, it made sense to definitely go after the preacher. You can go after the preacher and the preacher could get the flock. And that's exactly what happened. But now it's going beyond the preacher to the politicians. However you slice it, it doesn't matter how you slice it, it is just a big ball of doo-doo. So much deception that people are falling for, it is ridiculous. The Democratic Party was and is the party of the slavers. Always has been, always will be. The Republicans, at one point, was the party for the abolitionists, the Republic, who fought against that. But keep in mind, the Republicans today have fallen into the trap of becoming some racist bigots as well. They've fallen into the trap. I told you, two wings on the same bird. Now, it's not just African American people I hate that term African American, who was coined by Jesse Jackson or Messy Jesse during his presidential run, trying to make a difference. African American. But like I said, another story for another day. But just a real quickie here. People from Africa don't refer to themselves as African. They're proud to tell you what country they are from. If they're from Nigeria, they say Nigerian. If they're from Ghana, they say Ghanaian. Or if they're from Ethiopia or Eritrea, Eritrean or Ethiopian. They don't say African. They're not from all of the countries in Africa. Africa is a continent. Now, when you're dealing with people over here in the Western Hemisphere, hey, just a really quick cap on colonial history. I've known from my own research and from my family history that African American is a term used to steal identity and land. All of the names that we were known for, Negro, Black, and Colored, were all terms used to steal land from indigenous people over here in the United States. You have that, like I said, that's a whole nother issue that we can get into another time. But who spearheaded that? Republicans and Democrats. But the Democrats really had their teeth sunk into that. Two wings on the same bird of prey. They P-R-E-Y while we P-R-A-Y. We continue to P-R-A-Y while they continue to P-R-E-Y. And it doesn't seem like anybody's getting any smarter, because to date, people are unaware that the Klan, the KKK, had part ownership or has part ownership of the Democratic Party, were the influencing arm of the Democratic Party, had a publication that they used to distribute for the Democratic Party, and was used by the Democratic Party to go out and scare black people into being submissive and not voting for the Republic. That was the Democrats for you. And today, as I heard the politicians say on the radio, that black people are 95% Democrats. Something's wrong with that picture. Back in the Civil War era, you fought for your slave owner. You fought for the person who made you a slave and kept you a slave and kept you submissive, subservient, and done horrific things. And yes, black folks don't own slavery, because there was slavery among many different ethnic groups, but we're not speaking about all the different ethnic groups. We're speaking about one in particular right now. And for you to fight for them back then is no difference for you fighting today. Black people will go and vote straight ballots. You don't know who the people are you're voting for as long as it says Democrat. Long as it has Democrat attached to the name, boop, 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 pushing a button. Pushing a button just because it says Democrat. Is that smart? Now, when they make statements about how ignorant black people are, Democratic black people are, because they just race vote. They vote based off of race, not the character of a person, like Martin Luther King said, being judged by the content of your character, not by your race. How come so many people are ignoring what he said? Every household in black community probably has a picture of Martin Luther King, especially the older generation. The younger generations don't really give a damn. They don't care about nothing. But the older generations, like my mom's age and beyond that, and people my age and younger who are conscious, may have a picture of Martin, especially my mom's age and older, definitely have a picture of Martin Luther King somewhere. And Martin Luther King is the one that says, that made a statement about man being judged not by his race, but by the content of his character. But when it comes time to vote, and the PoliTricks and politicians starts with their campaigns slandering and trying to publicly humiliate each other to try to gain the vote. You don't have to gain the black vote. The black people gonna vote Democrat anyway. Black folk don't care about the content of your character. They just care about your party affiliation. Now, here's something that's really going to piss you off. The Republicans, and I don't really care about neither, Republican or Democrats, because they're all full of bullshit. But this is something that you can take to the bank. Republicans don't want to give you nothing. Democrats want to give you everything. What's wrong with that? One is going to make you lazy, the other is going to make you work. Give you whatever you want to keep you on our side, killing your ass. Now, listen to this. Republicans don't want to give you anything, but they don't want to take it from. They don't want to take stuff from you, but they don't want to give you anything. Their philosophy is equal playing ground. Don't take what I have to give to you. Create your own like I did. Now here's the argument. I can see for both sides. There's a color-coded racial element that exists at a high degree in this country. So black people feel like, well, we really can't do that because we're starting out behind the curve. Unfair. Okay, I understand that. But now let's flip that over. If these Negroes would decide to come together and do something together instead of talk about each other and build 1,000 churches within a 10 square mile area, maybe we could get something done. See, here's the deal. If Republicans will force Negroes to come together and create something for themselves, because they're not going to give you nothing. During time of segregation, people in the black community had schools, businesses, and was producers instead of consumers. Now, we're the highest consumers. Let's look at hair. Chris Rock made a movie about that. So let's look at hair. There's a hair place here in Charlotte. Huge place. All types of hair, wigs, products, beauticians, barbers, it's huge. Who owns it though? You got barbers in there cutting hair, dermatologists in there making their hair look beautiful with all these different styles. But who owns the hair industry? You would think, as crazy as we are about hair, we would have some kind of damn ownership in the industry, and we don't own a damn thing. We have to go to everybody else to buy hair, to buy products, to run a business. And that's pitiful. But you know what? The Republicans would force you to work together and create something for yourselves because they're not a party of givers. They don't want to just give you something because you feel like you're owed something. They're saying, oh, you want it? Go create it. The problem is we can't create it because we're too divided. We hate each other. Step on my shoes, you might get shot. We can't stand each other. Our Spanish brothers from Mexico can come and live 10, 15 deep in a house. Hey, some Asians do that too. Different cultures do that. Not black folk. You talking about going to war? You would have a bloody mess on your hands. Families hate each other in the black community. So if families can't get along, you know just strange black neighbors can't get along. But in the community, we don't like each other. Personal experience. There was a child in my neighborhood, a little black child in my neighborhood, bullying my son, my youngest son. So I went to his house to go speak to his parents. Turns out he's being brought up in a single parent household. And that's again a dysfunction of the black community. There's many single parent households, and moms are holding it down. They have no choice; they have to. But wouldn't it be great if we had a mom and a dad, and that was common, instead of just having one parent being the common thing in the black community? But anyway, I went to the child's house to speak to the mother because I felt like I was qualified to speak. First of all, he's my son is being bullied. Second, I worked at the time with juveniles. I worked with gangbangers. I worked with youth who have a propensity to be rapists. I worked with youth who were going in the direction of being a criminal, being locked up for psychiatric problems. I'm in the industry. I'm qualified. I have certifications of counseling to deal with the youth of that population. I went to go talk to the mom calmly, not angry and upset, just to tell exactly what was going on. And do you know what happened? The mother, and she whipped my ass with her words. And I see where the boy got his attitude from his mom. No wonder he's out there bullying people. She's a bully too. Hey, I'm just saying, let's get back to the Democrats, the Republicans. They're both full of bull. But we know that the Republicans are full of bull, but we think the Democrats are all for us, that they're our friends, when they were traditionally against us, and traditionally Republicans were for us. You see how twisted it all is? It's crazy. If you wanted to be a part of some type of party, I would say libertarian, independent. Forget the left and the right. Be independent if you got to be a part of politics like that. Think for yourself. Stop letting these bullshitters think for you and play games on you. This color game, this race game, playing you against everybody. Everybody don't hate each other as much. Let's put it, everybody wouldn't hate each other as much as they do now if it wasn't for the PoliTricks that runs people's lives. It created a color-coded society. All we see is color, all we see is race. And until you wake up and you see this stuff and you realize it, you stop being ignorant. And you not take my word for it, but look it up. Because the information is on record. It's documented. This is not made up. MAAFA, M-A-A-F-A 21. The eugenics program. Spearheaded by the Democrats. Spearheaded by Barack Obama. Spearheaded by Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton. Spearheaded by every Democrat before them. To kill black people, to reduce the population of unwanted black people. And not just black people, black, brown, tan, red, because the plan wasn't just for the so-called Negroes, it was for the so-called Indians. It was for the so-called low-income, white trash. Not a word I created, it's a word that they exploited. They don't like who they call white trash because they don't fit the bill of an upstanding white person. The white people who are elitists want to kill the white people who they think are trash, and they want to kill everybody else who they think are beneath them. They want to severely limit the reproduction of all these different groups. Agenda 21 does exist. Do your research. Go to my blog, www.therealtalkreport.net. Go to the search box on the right side of the screen and type in any keywords you want. You can type in genocide. You can type in MAAFA 21. You can type in Agenda 21. You can type in eugenics. You can type in whatever. I have over 300 articles and videos on this site, all information. All information. And if you are new to this type of information, it's probably things you never heard of. So you have a library on this site that will bring you up to speed and educate you about how we've been being lied to and used to further their agenda.
Alex Jones may sound crazy, but still has 300 million YouTube, well, he had 300 million people that have watched him on YouTube, and that sort of fringe, arch-conservative, deeply, I think, racist strain is being tapped into at crazy profit by people in the media.
Well, it is. The Democrats have been on the offensive for far too long, deeming any who oppose their views as racist. But many people don't realize that it was the Republican Party that created the abolition movement, beginning with Democratic Republican Party member Thomas Jefferson. Yes, Jefferson was a slaveholder, but he included bold anti-slavery language in the original draft of the Declaration of Independence that was removed. As president on March 2, 1807, Jefferson signed the act prohibiting importation of slaves. This act took effect in 1808 and was the earliest allowed under the Constitution. In 1863, Republican President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, which freed slaves held in the Confederate States. The 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution took effect in December 1865 and finally ended slavery throughout the United States. That year, the Ku Klux Klan was founded. Historian Eric Foner observed that basically the Klan was the military muscle behind the agenda of the Democratic Party, the plantation owner class, and all those truly afflicted with the mental disorder that is racism. The Klan's purposes were to reverse the interlocking changes sweeping over the South during Reconstruction, to destroy the Republican Party's infrastructure, undermine the Reconstruction state, reestablish control of the black labor force, and restore racial subordination in every aspect of Southern life. By any means necessary, the Klan sought this agenda by threats and violence, including murder against black and white Republicans. The federal government passed force acts to combat the Klan, but they rose up again. More than 2,000 people were killed, wounded, and otherwise in Louisiana within a few weeks prior to the presidential election of November 1868. Although the parish had registered a Republican majority of 1,071, after the murders, no Republicans voted in the fall elections. White Democrats cast the full vote of that parish for Republican Ulysses S. Grant's opponent. The KKK killed and wounded more than 200 black Republicans. 13 captives were taken from jail and shot. A pile of 25 bodies was found in the woods. The Klan made people vote Democratic and gave them certificates of that fact. Furnifold Simmons, a Democratic chairman, ranted about the pervasiveness of black power in an editorial for the Raleigh News and Observer. The Republican Party has the Negro on its hands, and it has to pay some respect to his wishes, the Democrat explained. Furthermore, to hold the Negro solid, the party must give him local offices in the counties and towns where he is numerous. If the party gives him these local offices, then bad government must follow. The Democrat reasoned with obvious stupidity. In 1939, Planned Parenthood pioneer and leftist Margaret Sanger began the Negro Project. To bring people along willingly, she enlisted black preachers to support sterilization. She outlined the deceitful plan in a letter to Clarence Gamble of the Procter & Gamble empire.
We should hire 3 or 4 colored ministers, preferably with social service backgrounds and with engaging personalities. The most successful educational approach to the Negro is through a religious appeal. We don't want the word to go out that we want to exterminate the population.
During the 1950s and 1960s, the Klan forged alliances with Southern police departments. Several members of KKK groups were convicted of murders and the deaths of civil rights workers and children in the bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham. Meanwhile, a group of African-American students enrolled in Little Rock Central High School in 1957. Their enrollment followed by the Little Rock Crisis, in which the students were initially prevented from entering a racially segregated school by the governor of Arkansas. It took the intervention of a Republican President Eisenhower to allow the Little Rock Nine to make American civil rights history. As the horrors of the national civil rights battle dragged on, Democratic President LBJ was pressured to sign the Civil Rights Act of 1964, outlawing discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin, and the Voting Act of 1965, designed to enforce the voting rights guaranteed by the 14th and 15th Amendments to the United States Constitution. But behind closed doors, LBJ said this: "These Negroes are getting pretty uppity these days, and that's a problem for us since they've got something now they never had before, the political pull to back up their uppityness. Now, we've got to do something about this. We've got to give them a little something that's just enough to quiet them down, not enough to make a difference. I'll have them, N-word, voting Democratic for the next 200 years."
And it's so frustrating to see all of this unfolding and the fact that they're using race-based politics to say, turn your guns in or you're racist. Support Obamacare or you're racist. And whites have been so conditioned to be politically correct that they could say, go jump off a cliff, white person, or you're racist. The average white person would probably jump off a cliff, even with their newborn baby, if ordered to do so by Rachel Maddow or Ed Schultz.
The horrific history of the Democratic Party, all but forgotten. Gradually, the Republican Party that had been carrying the torch for the rights of all men was painted into the white Southern racist party by the Democrats.
They're trying to act like they have no connection in the past and in the present to what I'm talking about, literally preying on your ignorance.
Welfare that had supported the poor white man now went to the 70% of the minority population that gleefully shifted over to the Democratic Party, not even realizing that they had been led into a life of welfare and a system designed to destroy the family. This report is not an endorsement of either party. It is simply the history that we must relearn or to repeat.
See, the globalists are playing everybody off against everybody. That's why we have to unify around ideas and liberty, not around skin color.
Exactly right. Great special report there from John